Everyone to Appropriations Committee. We have 56 bills on file, 13 of which are eligible for due pass motion. The remaining bills are suspense items. 3 bills that are on the daily file have been rescheduled for a later hearing. Those are SB 439, SB 439, 793, and ACR 46. Before we call the first author up, I'd like to remind the audience and members, we are going to be taking testimony that is only limited to the fiscal aspects of the measures. Please refrain from lengthy policy discussions in your comments, or I will have to cut you off. And nobody wants to do that. I'm actually in a good mood today. Sergeants, would you please call the absent committee members and the following authors who are presenting bills so we can get started. We have Senator Jackson, Senator Hernandez, Hertzberg, Bell, Wachowski, Hancock, and suspense bills with presentations are Senator Leno, McGuire, Monning, Pan, Mitchell, Stone, Morrell, Leyva, and Nielsen are committee members. So we will begin with Senator Carol Liu, who was here nice and prompt. Welcome, Senator Liu.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm waiving presentation on SB 68, SB 172, and SB 636 that are all on suspense.
Perfect.
And I'd like to present on SB 445 and SB 580.
Perfect. We'll begin with SB 445.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Member, SB 445 brings parity between homeless youth and foster youth with regard to school of origin and matriculation. And during the 13-14 school year, roughly 269,000 students in California experience homelessness. These pupils have very little in the way of structured support, and for many of them, their own safety net and stable connection is their school. Homeless children have no control over where they may be living the next day. However, when they are able to stay in school of origin, they can at least have a consistency with a group of peers and adults, which can increase educational outcomes and is a protective factor against other social and emotional harms. The bill does not provide additional transportation for youth wishing to stay in their school of origin, and thus is a low-cost solution. This is a simple, common-sense approach that will help to improve circumstances for homeless children and their families. And I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. Witnesses in support of the measure.
Good morning. My name is Laura Fair. I'm the Statewide Education Rights Director with Public Counsel. We have offices in Los Angeles and in Berkeley. We represent many of the thousands of the state's most vulnerable children each year. One story is illustrative of the problem that SB 445 will help solve and help save the state of California money as a result. When Josh was in 5th grade, his family became homeless. They were living in a shelter, but when the father attempted to enroll his son in the feeder middle school where all of his son's friends would be going, he was turned away. If Josh had been a foster youth, this would not have been an issue because the legislature has already addressed that problem for foster youth. So Josh was not only homeless, he was schoolless, and his father had to change his school. And that once stellar straight-A student started struggling in school, failing, and was acting out. Josh was forced to experience the school instability that we know and that research shows causes educational academic failure and dropout for our students. This is something that California cannot afford, as the loss for dropout from homeless students who are subjected to this type of instability has been estimated to be as much as $3.2 billion. For Josh and other students like him, SB 445 can change the story and create parity and stability that will reap rewards for students and for the state of California. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness in support. Additional witnesses in support on this item? Witnesses in opposition? Finance.
Jacqueline Wong Hernandez with the Department of Finance. We don't have a position on this bill at this time, but note that the bill could create a reimbursable state mandate of tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars in Proposition 98 General Fund by requiring schools to track homeless youth students and ensure their rights continue, even if their homeless status changes throughout their time in school.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from our Vice Chairman? No? Senator Liu, would you like to close?
I simply ask for your support on the bill.
Thank you. We will take a formal vote on the measure once we have quorum. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your next item is SB 580.
580, yes. This bill is a district bill regarding the disposition of homes Caltrans purchased 60 years ago for the North State Route 710 project. With the project mirrored in litigation, sale of the homes not needed for construction has been deferred for decades. The project was rebooted 4 years ago, and the originally proposed route has now been discarded. This clears the way for Caltrans to sell many of the homes. Disposition of the surplus homes is governed by a 40-year-old law known as the Roberti Bill, the objectives of which are to provide low and middle-income housing and preserve neighborhoods. Caltrans is proceeding with the draft regulations governing the sale of the property, but one last issue warrants a legislative remedy, and that is the disposition of properties, including especially the historical properties that may not be suitable for affordable housing. So SB 580 would enable public housing entities to buy and rehabilitate Caltrans homes, sell them for a profit, then use those funds to build affordable housing. The bill also gives public and nonprofit entities a priority over affordable housing entities to purchase an historical home. Public entities could rehabilitate and sell the homes for profit and apply the funds to build affordable housing in the same area. Alternatively, the public entity or nonprofit would restore and open the historical home for public use. Members, this is a resolution to this issue that has been a long time coming. Excuse me. My office is in close contact and coordination with Caltrans as they proceed with the regulations implementing the Roberti Bill as amended by my SB 416 of 2013. We are mindful of the need to maintain synchrony between pending legislation and the pending regulations and ask you to move this bill forward today, and I ask for your support on the bill.
Thank you. Witnesses in support of the measure. Witnesses in opposition.
I don't think.
Finance.
According to Caltrans, this bill will not increase the amount of resources currently identified for Caltrans to sell the properties.
Thank you. Questions from the committee? We don't have quorum yet, but Senator Liu, I'm very familiar with this issue, and
long time coming.
I applaud your efforts to continue to remedy this continuing issue that continues to be a problem for a lot of us that live up and down the 710 freeway.
Right.
So thank you. Once we have quorum, we'll continue. We'll
Thank you
move the
very
measure.
much.
Thank you
very much, members.
We have Senator Jackson. Senator Jackson, you have a couple measures. You have 4 items. You do have a due pass on SB 667 recommendation, and you're waiving presentation on 429, correct?
That is correct. That is correct.
Okay, so why don't we start with your due pass?
All right.
First.
That
That's
is,
SB 667, members.
thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members.
Go ahead.
After a period of temporary disability, if an employee returns to work for more than 2 weeks before experiencing a relapse or needing additional treatment for the same condition, they must reserve the 7 consecutive day waiting period before being eligible for those additional benefits. This places an enormous financial hardship upon employees who are at the same time managing a chronic illness or injury like chronic debilitating back pain, or for those who have returned after initial cancer treatment but must have subsequent chemotherapy. It also disincentivizes employees from returning to work from a period of disability as soon as and for as long as possible to avoid going through this process over and over again of uncertainty and loss of income. This measure would waive the 7-day waiting period for an individual who has already served the 7-day waiting period for their initial claim when that person files a subsequent claim for disability benefits for the same or a related condition within 60 days after returning to work at the conclusion of the initial disability benefit period. The EDD indicates that it would incur a one-time cost of about $57,000 to implement the proposal, and those costs would be absorbed by the Disability Insurance Fund and would require no general fund dollars. I have one primary witness here today to speak in support of the bill, Mariko Yoshihara.
Thank you. Witnesses in support.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, Mariko Yoshihara with the California Employment Lawyers Association. Also here on behalf of Legal Aid Society Employment Law Center. Overall, the total amount of disability insurance claims for repeated occurrences of the same condition is less than 2%. So this bill would help those with chronic conditions who are trying to access wage replacements under the SDI fund, which is completely worker funded. We think this will greatly reduce the stress and financial burden for those who need intermittent benefits, and therefore we strongly urge your support.
Thank you. Additional witness in support.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, Mitch Seaman with the California Labor Federation, also in support. For the reasons previously stated, we think it's a common sense reform that, again, doesn't apply to a large number of claims, but for those workers that are affected, this reform will mean the world in terms of them getting the benefits that they deserve. We urge your support.
Great, thank you. Additional witnesses in support on this item. Witnesses in opposition. Finance.
EDD anticipates minor and absorbable one-time costs to complete the IT programming changes and to update disability insurance materials. The EDD also estimates that the bill would result in a minor cost increase to the Unemployment Compensation Disability Fund as a result of removing the 7-day waiting period for subsequent claims.
Thank you. Questions from the committee? Seeing none, Senator Jackson, would you like to close?
Just simply ask for your aye vote in this common sense measure.
Thank you, Senator Jackson. Once we have quorum, we will move the item.
Thank you.
You have two suspense items, SB 122 and SB 347.
Yes.
We'll begin with SB 122.
Thank you. I realize this is a candidate for suspense, but I'd like to briefly present on the bill. The analysis recommends some amendments on page 3, and I'm happy to accept those amendments while the bill is on suspense. SB 122 is a modest and practical measure designed to bring the CEQA process into the 21st century and to make it more efficient and more accessible to the public. It does so in two ways. First, it explicitly authorizes lead agencies at the request of project applicants to prepare the record of proceedings contemporaneous with the CEQA process at the same time. This provision is optional and could save time and effort in the event of a post-decision CEQA challenge. I would also like to indicate that most applicants know when a project is going to be challenged. And in order to save anywhere from 6 months to a year in the time it takes to prepare that record, it could be done contemporaneously with, so that at the time that the challenge is made, they are 1 year, potentially 1 year ahead of the game in terms of reducing that delay, which is one of the most common complaints we hear about the CEQA process. Second, the Governor's Office of Planning and Research, OPR, currently operates a very limited online CEQA repository they call CEQAnet as part of the state clearinghouse used for state-level review of environmental documents. This measure would direct OPR to expand its online CEQA repository to include copies of all CEQA documents in a single repository, forming a true statewide CEQA clearinghouse and doing so in real time. Again, so that this will help move the process along and bring CEQA into the 21st century. It'll increase transparency and provide the public with an easy-to-use universal point of entry into the CEQA process, rather than have to walk to the courthouse, stand there waiting for CEQA documents to be filed, which could take an enormous amount of time anyway. This puts it right up online so that people have immediate access to it. This should remove the delay, again, additional delays. But of significance to this committee is the savings to state agencies, which may very well outweigh the costs estimated in the committee analysis by potentially reducing agency resources used for the processing and handling of documents over and over and over again. As the analysis points out, the State Research Bureau believes this provision will lower the overall cost of complying with CEQA. It could save state agencies more than $250,000 annually and may easily exceed $500,000 annually. It will also make significant but not so major changes to CEQA, the substance of CEQA, by improving its processing that will result in a better process, more expedited activities, which I know are the concern of our communities, particularly our state, in terms of developing good projects, getting people back to work. And on that basis, I would respectfully ask for your aye vote at the appropriate time.
Witnesses in support on this item.
Mr. Chair, members, Cesar Diaz on behalf of the State Building and Construction Trades Council. Strong supporters of CEQA. Understood the act has come under reforms as of late This is an important bill to bring CEQA into the 21st century. We're looking at EIRs and getting that information out to the important constituencies. Having this be available to the general public will also help reduce litigation and address some of the agency concerns up front as well as constituencies. We believe it's important for people to be aware of these projects first and foremost, and to have an actual database so that any type of developer can anticipate any changes to their project and to mitigate those changes to their specific needs. For those reasons, we do support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional witnesses in support.
Mr. Chair and members, Caitlin Vega for the California Labor Federation, also here in support. The author has worked very hard with stakeholders to identify what I think both sides feel like are legitimate problems with the process that can take too long. So we think that this reform really addresses some of the core obstacles and also preserves, most importantly, the ability of the public to participate. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional witnesses in support of this item. Witnesses in opposition. Seeing none, Finance.
We don't have a position on the bill at this time, but according to OPR, the bill would have approximately $220,000 in one-time costs to transfer the database to the California Department of Technology, and ongoing general fund costs of approximately $57,000 a year for the Department of Technology to host and maintain the system. We do also note, like the author, that OPR predicts that expanding the CEQA database could result in cost savings for different state agencies ongoing.
Questions or comments from the committee? Perfect. Would you like to close?
Thank you. I appreciate the concern. CEQA is a big issue in this state. This is the low-hanging fruit, and I think once we pick it, we'll find that CEQA works more smoothly for everybody.
Perfect. Thank you. Without objection, we'll move this item to the suspense file. Moving now to SB 347.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. SB 347 would strengthen our firearms laws by adding to the list of persons prohibited from purchasing or possessing a firearm for a 10-year period to include those convicted of specified firearm-related misdemeanors. Again, specified firearm-related misdemeanors. According to a study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association, it's been well established that persons with a history of even a single prior arrest as a group are substantially more likely than persons with no such history to engage in criminal behavior in the future. Because many firearm-related misdemeanors are not included in the current prohibition, many individuals with a history of criminal activity still legally purchase firearms every year. This bill would add offenses that should have been included when the 10-year prohibition was originally enacted. And although there are potential increases in state costs due to more individuals being added to the armed prohibited persons list system, in the long term, it may result in cost savings to our state and counties. Data from the Department of Justice indicates there have been over 3,000 misdemeanor convictions per year on average for the crimes listed in this bill. However, the offense of receipt of stolen property constitutes 93% of the total convictions, but we cannot break it out to know whether specifically included in that stolen property was a firearm. So we can't go beyond that specific information that 93% of these offenses are for stolen property. Some of them will also include firearms, which will become subject to this. We just don't know the full extent because that data has not been kept. Regardless, this results in a little over 200 convictions per year for the rest of misdemeanors listed on the list that we know would be firearms related. Furthermore, this bill adds misdemeanor offenses that would normally have been charged as felonies to trigger the 10-year prohibition. So to the extent some percentage of felony convictions resulting in county jail sentences are instead charged as misdemeanors, local jails could realize cost savings due to shorter jail sentences, and I would add our courts could see a reduction in having to go through the whole process that's required when a case is filed as a felony, requiring an initial hearing, a show cause hearing, whether or not to hold someone to answer. The process is much more complex when it's a felony filing rather than a misdemeanor filing. And I understand the bill is recommended for suspense, and I look forward to working with the committee to to make the appropriate adjustments to lower the costs of implementing this bill, and at the same time strengthening our firearms laws to reduce unnecessary gun violence. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Witnesses in support of the measure.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members. Ryan Sherman on behalf of Los Angeles County Professional Peace Officers Association, the Santa Ana and Long Beach Police Officer Associations, Sacramento County Deputy Sheriff's Association.
You should deal with the Long Beach one first. It just sounds better.
Next time I will. Thank you, sir. Long Beach. And the California Fraternal Order of Police, we're supportive of this measure because we believe that keeping guns out of the hands of convicted criminals who have a history of gun-related offenses makes good sense, makes for good public safety, and we urge your aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional witnesses in support.
Thank you. Jim Lindberg on behalf of the Friends Committee on Legislation of California in support of SB 347. We think both from a policy outlook and from a fiscal outlook that this approach is much more effective and less burdensome to the state than creating new felonies. When we create new felonies that several other bills are proposing to do in the aftermath of Proposition 47, we also create poverty. And so we strongly support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional witnesses in support of this measure. Witnesses in opposition, please come forward. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Ed Worley with the National Rifle Association. Our opposition to the bill revolves around the new misdemeanors that are being added on, not the add-ons that the senator is talking about. Problematic in this is that if you transfer ammunition to a minor, which could even be your own child, then you can run afoul of having one strike and you're prohibited for 10 years. So if you give your 20-year-old son ammunition to go to the range to shoot with, it's legal for them to have the gun, it's legal for them to go to the range, it's legal for them to go shooting. But some calibers of ammunition they can't buy. So part of this myriad of things you run into is that some of these misdemeanors that are being listed aren't violent misdemeanors. One of them is transferring a firearm without a license. We've had NRA members whose fathers have passed away, that they have given guns to people, members of the family, not knowing they had to go through a private party transfer. So you could have members of the family giving firearms to nephews, to daughters, to things like that when an estate is being resolved, who would run afoul of this and have a misdemeanor violation that would prohibit them from owning guns for 10 years. So I think the scope of the bill needs to be narrowed, talking about the misdemeanors that are real crime issues and not problems with people doing mistakes and things that they're not aware of. So we would ask the senator, as we did in our letter, to narrow the scope of the bill. Thank you very much.
Additional witnesses in opposition.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Tom Pedersen on behalf of California Rifle and Pistol Association. We actually understand the reason that the prohibition was put in place. We support the keeping of firearms out of the hands of those that shouldn't have them. Where the issue with this bill is that when these misdemeanors are added on, a number of them are, as the previous speaker noted, they're nonviolent and they don't involve the use of a firearm, such as the transfer of ammunition where an uncle transfers it to a nephew, they could be in violation. So for that purpose, the bill, I think, has some problems, and it should be narrowed to keep it in form with what was originally intended. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members, Sam Paredes representing gun owners of California, and we'd like to agree with my colleagues here as to the problems with regards to the bill. On the financial aspect, Senator, there is no question that this is going to add a significant increase to the entire incarceration process, and will add additional backlog to the armed prohibited person system, which we had an oversight hearing on just last week, where they found that it was woefully, I don't want to say mismanaged. It's not working. They're way behind the eight ball in making that program work, and this is going to add to that problem and to that expense. It's not clear if this is retroactively applied. Oh my goodness, the cost to the state of California could be geometrically increased, and we agree with the governor's veto of SB 755 that he said that he was not persuaded that it's necessary to bar gun ownership on the basis of crimes that are non-felonies, non-violent, and do not involve the misuse of a firearm. So for those reasons, we are in opposition to this bill.
Thank you. Thank you for that fiscal argument. Again, we don't want to rehash the policy committee discussion on these items. Senator, Finance.
No file.
Thank you. Senator Jackson, would you like to close?
Thank you. To try to clarify a little bit of the misinformation, we are not creating any new misdemeanors here. What this bill does is it puts people on the prohibited persons list if they've been convicted of particular misdemeanors that are already in law. We understand the retroactivity issue, and we'll be dealing with that. I always appreciate hearing from my good friends at the NRA, but they had not, previous to this moment, as I understand it, presented any of their concerns. I'm certainly happy to listen to those going forward. The reality is, from the fiscal side, that we believe that we're talking about a very limited number of cases, and they all do relate to the use of, these are firearms-related charges. The veto that the governor did last year was for a bill that referenced DUIs as something which would subject someone to the prohibited persons list. This bill deals with firearms-related offenses. We have narrowed the bill in that fashion. So we are not looking at a huge, anywhere near a geometrical or even a significant increase. As I mentioned, we're looking at potentially 3,000 cases, and many of those are not definable within the context of gun usage. So the cost should be relatively small. The savings, of course, at the end of the day, when you are dealing with misdemeanors and not felonies, is significant in and of itself. And so with that, I would ask for your consideration and your support as this comes off suspense.
Thank you, Senator Jackson. Without objection, this bill will be moved to the suspense file. Members, we do have quorum now. If we can have the secretary please call the roll.
Laura?
Here.
Laura, here. Bates? Bates here. Bell? Bell here. Hill?
Bell here.
Hill here. Leyva? Mendoza? Nielsen?
Thank you. We're going to, before we take up Senator Hernandez, let's go back to the 3 items that we've heard that have due pass recommendations, beginning with SB 445 by Senator Liu. Secretary, please call the roll. Oh, I'm sorry. We got a motion by Senator Hill. Secretary, please call the roll.
The motion is due pass to the Senate floor. Laura?
Aye.
Laura, aye. Bates? Bates, aye. Bell? Bell, aye. Hill? Hill, aye. Leyva? Mendoza? Nielsen?
We'll keep that roll open for the absent members to add on. Next, members, we have SB 580 by Senator Liu. There's a motion by Senator Hill. Secretary, please call the roll.
The motion is due pass to the Senate floor. Laura?
Aye.
Laura, aye. Bates? Bates, aye. Bell?
Aye.
Bell, aye. Hill? Hill, aye. Leyva? Mendoza? Nielsen?
We'll keep that roll open as well to have other senators add on when they come to committee. We'll have next, we'll hear SB 667, Senator Jackson. If we can get a motion for that item. Moved by Senator Bell. Secretary, please call the roll.
The motion is due pass to the Senate floor. Laura?
Aye.
Laura, aye. Bates? Bates, aye. Bell? Bell, aye. Hill? Hill, aye. Leyva? Mendoza? Nielsen?
Thank you. That keeps us current with our agenda. Senator Hernandez? Oh, I'm sorry, that bill will also remain on call to allow other senators to add on. And Senator Hernandez. Senator Hernandez, I understand you're waiving presentation on SB 137, 147, 282, and 461, correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
So you're presenting on, members, Senator Hernandez is presenting on SB 323. Go ahead, Senator Hernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. The Affordable Care Act just placed 4 million new individuals on a healthcare system that was already struggling to meet California's needs. As you know, we have a shortage of doctors here in California. Study after study highlights this fact, including one released just months by the Association of American Medical Colleges that says, Demand for physicians continues to grow faster than supply, leading to a projected shortfall of over 90,000 physicians by 2025. Here in California, just 16 out of the 58 counties have recommended ratio of physicians to residents. Additionally, 1 in 3 residents in our state receive care from our Medi-Cal system, where wait times to see a doctor can be as long as 9 months, and helping plans are struggling to comply with a network of adequacy requirements. We can no longer afford to get by on a fraction of our professional capacity. California needs more healthcare providers participating in the full extent of their training so we can all have access to a system that is efficient. This bill does 3 things. It establishes a uniform scope of practice for nurse practitioners that is widely agreed to be the services that they already perform today. Second, it explicitly requires NPs to refer a patient to a physician or another licensed healthcare provider if a situation or condition presents that is beyond their scope of practice or training. And third, it grants NPs the ability to practice outside a physician-directed standardized procedure if it is certified by a national certifying body, maintains professional liability insurance, and is practicing in one of the following settings where regular access to physician and healthcare is certain. A clinic, which is a clinic, health facility, or county medical facility, an accountable care organization, or a group practice. Your staff analysis indicates that cost associated with implementation of the bill is $75,000 for the Department of Consumer Affairs to update its regulations. Please join me with Assemblymember Eggman, hospitals, clinics, health plans, physician groups, large and small businesses, labor, consumers, academic universities, seniors, and a broad array of healthcare providers in support of this measure. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members.
Thank you. I'm going to remind our testimony to be related to the fiscal, which is minor. So we want to make sure we don't rehash policy discussions. So witnesses in support.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Christy Weiss on behalf of the California Association of Nurse Practitioners in Support. We did have a lengthy discussion on the policy in Senator Hill's committee, and we'll certainly take the chair's advice. I just would like to point out that in addition to the points made by Senator Hernandez, under his bill it will allow nurse practitioners to see a greater number of Medi-Cal patients. And certainly, as you know, we have a great shortage of providers in the Medi-Cal system. Many of the policy decisions made by this legislature and this committee have resulted in California having one of the most robust Medi-Cal expansions in the country, with 12 million people now in Medi-Cal, and we think that this will ease the ability of nurse practitioners to see patients in that program, and we ask for your aye vote.
Additional witnesses support.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Connie Delgado with the California Hospital Association, and we believe that the passage of this bill will hopefully have some impact on our emergency departments and thereby saving those costly emergency room visits when these folks can get treatment with the nurse practitioners. For those reasons, we're in support.
Thank you.
And Bill Barcelona with California Association of Physician Groups. We support the bill as well. We believe that adding nurse practitioners to our networks that serve 18 million Californians will lower the overall cost of care delivery and increase access.
Perfect. Additional witnesses support, if they can state their name and their position.
Missy Johnson on behalf of AARP in strong support.
Terry Thomas on behalf of the California Association of Public Hospitals and Health Systems in support.
Mr. Chairman and members, Nathan Mansky representing the Alliance of Catholic Healthcare and the Private Essential Access Community Hospitals in support. Thank you.
Megan Maddox with the California Pharmacists Association in full support.
Judy Welland, the California Naturopathic Doctors Association in support.
Myra Lang representing the coalition of the Association of California Nurse Leaders, the California Nursing Students Association, and the California Association of Colleges of Nursing in strong support.
Sandy Freed with the University of California in support.
Theo Peos, California Health Support.
Mike Montgomery, Congress of California Seniors, support.
Additional witnesses in support on this item. Witnesses in opposition, please come forward.
Jody Hicks,
Jody Hicks on behalf of the California Academy of Family Physicians. We are opposed unless amended, and our opposition remains with the policy of the bill, and I won't go into that since this isn't the proper place. I will say that we are working with the senator and thankful to that, and are coming up with amendments that we can offer him, and just trying to get the House of Medicine all on the same page.
Thank you. No witness in opposition.
Mr. Chair, members, Tim Madden representing the California Society of Plastic Surgeons. We are in opposition largely around the policy which has been discussed, and no concerns around the fiscal. Thank you.
Mr. Chair and members, Juan Thomas, representing the California Medical Association. We're opposed to the bill for the reasons previously mentioned. We are involved with family physicians and others and coming up with some language to share with the senator for proposed amendments, but for now we remain opposed.
Thank you. Additional witnesses in opposition of the measure? Seeing none, Finance.
No file on this measure.
Thank you. Senator Hernandez, would you like, comments or questions from committee? Seeing none, there's a motion. Senator Hernandez, would you like to close?
Just respectfully ask for an aye vote, Mr. Chair and members.
Thank you. There's a motion on the item. Secretary, please call the roll.
The motion is due pass to the Senate floor. Laura?
Aye.
Laura, aye. Bates? Bell? Aye. Bell, aye. Hill? Aye. Hill, aye. Leyva? Mendoza? Nielsen?
Thank you. Senator Hernandez will keep that item open to allow other members to add on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.